humor. Because, coming up with these characters, I mean, Amy and I came up with names for these characters so you could kind of set the tone for the kind of character it is. We're not meaning to make fun of people. We used humor in this instance to sort of make a point. Would I recommend you saying to someone, well, you're a know-it-all, aren't you? No, I wouldn't recommend that. Unless you have a really good rapport with someone, or unless someone is pointing that out about themselves, right? When I handed her the chat, first she came in early, she was chatting with everybody, right? And when I handed her the character thing, she said, did you write this for me? So like in a situation like that, that doesn't feel too risky for me to call her Chatty Cathy, right? So, but just be careful about humor. Humor is a great community builder. I'm going to write this down. Right? It's a great community builder. It's a great way to build rapport. And at the same time, too much humor or the wrong kind of humor with the wrong person or the person who doesn't match that can have the opposite effect. Someone could say, oh, she's making fun of me. Or I think she's putting me down. Right? So you just have to be careful. And those of us who are funny, so like you can tell most of the time the people that lands well with. And if you do something that you think is funny or you think is engaging and it doesn't land well, then you get to say, I'm sorry about that. That didn't work the way I wanted it to work. And then you just move on. Okay? So now what we're going to do is we're going to go around and hear the report notes. What I did is in the middle of each of your tables, I put the characters, wrote out what their personalities are, and I wrote some tips for how to support or engage these characters. So I put it here, so if during the report outs you get some good ideas, just go ahead and write it right down on the charts that you have so you can refer to this later. Because you will, when you're facilitating a class, you're going to be like, what did that group say about the ramp? So let's start over here, nice and loud, with the squeaky wheel.
All right. So acceptance of how the squeaky wheel may feel at the moment and how their mindset may change their experience. Support mindset and help to move forward. Redirect in a positive in general. Identify strengths. Provide reflection. Ask questions. Draw on positive experiences of other group members for support. Do a high-low check-in in the beginning. Ask about the positives that have been going on. Acknowledge frustrations of the system. Group may help to increase control within their own home to sort of manage smaller pieces. Systems often struggle to work together. Be empathetic. Throw it back to the group for other suggestions. We've got some duplication. Start small to increase hope. Provide education. In class if you can, provide it after, use the parking lot. Can we discuss this at a break or after class? Remind of diversity of a group and use a timer to prevent getting stuck.
Nice, really solid recommendations. Wondering if anybody want to add something to that might be overlooked? I think you really one thing I would add, in addition to, can we talk during the break, wherever that is, during the break, you can also refer the person to their family services worker or their resource coordinator, also if they're really stuck, okay? So that was the squeaky wheel. Thank you for your report. Personal Penelope.
Personal Penelope, balance between oversharing and not. Sharing can create connection. Sharing and maintain confidentiality. How to address gracefully. Allow for space and acknowledging we have to park it. Supporting person might offer a hand for support after class conversation. By proximity, might interrupt. Is it a group, a class, or counseling? Offer additional supports, i.e. support groups. I think that's mentoring, I'm not sure.
Yes, it is.
And email me.
Great suggestions. Amy, can I bounce to you?
Yes.
Is it a group, a class, or counseling? Yes.
Well, it's really a class, but there's certainly processing that happens, and it can feel like moments that it's a therapy group, and you want to get the heck out of that really fast if it turns into that piece, because you just haven't prepared people to do any kind of group therapy, and someone could really get hurt in that process. So, it is a class with
Right.
therapeutic components.
Right. Because you can't talk about this stuff. You can't talk about trauma stuff without some stuff coming up, emotional stuff for the people in the room. And you're going to have foster parents, parents, like pretty much everybody in the room is going to have some sort of relationship to trauma. So, but to also like other people in the class, like that happens all the time. We're going over into the therapy section. We have people in evaluations all the time say, this is not therapy, right? We have people say that. So to work on those skills. Another way to address the personal Penelope is in the beginning when you're setting group norms or group agreements. Did you talk about that yesterday?
Yes.
Yeah.
Talk a little more.
So to really set a boundary about the personal sharing, that what's most, like sharing should be about yourself, your experience. And encourage people to share about, thematic, on topic, short. You don't need all the details. You don't need the genogram. You don't need all of the details. Really, what is the purpose for the sharing? Role model that. When you're doing sharing, role model concise anecdotal information. Role model, like you're not going to tell the whole long trauma history of someone. You're just going to say, yes, after visits, this is behavior that we see, whatever it is specifically. What other ideas do you have for supporting personal Penelope in class? No others? And I want to say, like, personal sharing is also what helps build community, right? It's that shared experience. It's the acceptance. It's, I'm going to share my experience, my struggles, my successes with you, and we're all going to learn together from that. So it's not, any of these personalities also bring really positive things to the classroom as well. Thank you. Know it all.
So we had for non-helpful facilitator, this was a fellow know-it-all with me that didn't like it if the facilitator didn't contain the other characters. That made the know-it-all very frustrated. If the facilitator belittles or condescends the know-it-all, or if they just totally ignore the fact that they know everything. Helpful is ask them directly to allow space for others to share. Be aware of that person's impact on the group, pros or cons. Understanding like what is the root of this behavior, so where is that coming from for that person. Reflect back knowledge or gaps in knowledge when the person is talking. Creating connections with the Sal and Siley type or Doubting Thomas. And some of the ways to kind of support them or use them would be give them a specific task. So maybe at the beginning of the group say, hey, I really need your help with this today, so they feel empowered and special. Validating that they do know a lot and have a lot to share. Have them share in an area where they've been particularly successful. You could, potentially if it continues, you could agree with that person outside of the group on like a silent signal that you might be like, put it out. Not too silent, but something, having a good personal relationship to help a person self-reflect in a safe space. Also a nice, I think you kind of did a blanket statement, you could kind of say something at the beginning that like, okay, I might have to stop people if they're kind of going off on tangents or chat, so you could make a blanket statement before the group even begins about, that kind of reflects some of these, that you may have to stop people or contain them or move the group along.
Right. I love that you pointed that out. Like group agreements can be a great way to set a foundation for anticipating these behaviors. And like someone here wrote, like I'm too polite to cut people off. So if you create an environment where this is what we do, right? You know, talk while other people are talking, everybody's got a voice. I also like to say everybody in the room brings something to the room. We all are experts in our own way. But when you write that in and you acknowledge I might need to stop you, it removes it from being personal, right? It's just a group norm. It's just what we do. Amy, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I was just thinking, the person who's too polite to cut people off, I understand it's really hard, but I've also learned when I've not cut people off, I'm also upsetting the whole rest of the class. If I'm not cutting that one person off, everyone else is having inferior experience. So that's given me some courage sometimes to interrupt people. And I can't underestimate the relationship part. The faster you can have a one-on-one relationship with everyone in that group, the better you'll be able to address all of those things. So go out of your way to connect with people individually, memorize it, get to know their names, get to know something interesting about them, and get connected. And then it makes it easier to do all of this stuff.
Right, absolutely. Linda?
A class I was teaching, because I cannot cut people off sometimes. In the evaluation afterwards, complaints from other people in the class was my inability to cut them off, so that we could not, other people were not more engaged and we couldn't move forward.
Right. And that's a finesse, because sometimes, I also hear people say, like, I feel like I need to cut someone off because I have more to cover. But if someone's engaged in something and people are in it, and other people are engaged in it, and it's a really important topic, that's where you weigh content over process. And you're like, you know what, this is a really important process and people are stuck here. And other times, it just isn't relevant. Or it's not that it's not relevant, but the point has been made, and made, and made, and we don't need to keep saying it again. Were you doubting Thomas?
No.
Oh, I thought you were going to say something. The other thing too is use that person as a segue. When they bring something up, I sometimes, that is great. Thanks so much for saying that, because this is a topic we are going to talk about right after the break. So you acknowledge that they bring something forth and then you're not at the right time. Another thing is ways to validate. Thank you for bringing that up. Thanks for sharing your experience. Does anybody else have an experience different from that?
Right, if you have a set thing in your mind you're gonna say, that
Right.
will help you get through that when you're
Yep.
uncomfortable.
And
Thank you
so
so much,
here,
now we're doing it.
I put tips for you on here for some statements to say. Great, thank you. Doubting Thomas, nice and loud.
Being heard, knowing effort is being validated, and hearing concrete information for why things didn't work out maybe. Ask clarifying questions, presenting with confidence, checking in, I think that must mean, this is not what we wrote, but that must mean confidence as a presenter than what you're doing, I would assume. Checking in individually with that person, maybe during a break or something. Individual attention encourages others to share their own stories as an example, people who have maybe had successes with things that they didn't get. Allowing them to be heard and giving new strategies. Asking what keeps you going, asking the person how they keep their hope despite, being frustrated at having things not work. We're asking, were there ever parts of it that did work? Opening it up to the group for feedback, what do you guys think? Reflecting successful attempts, what would it look like if it did work? Reframing expectations and keeping in mind, the abilities of the child. Did it not work because maybe you weren't, because maybe the child wasn't ready for it or something like that. Acknowledging frustrations and system limitations, like frustrations with DCF or school, and normalizing those frustrations. We also talked about an important thing that I wanted to mention is we talked about what is success. Maybe your success isn't, maybe you did have success, but you didn't acknowledge it, you didn't recognize it as success.
Thanks so much. I love, what was that, what is it that keeps you going? Very strength-based. That is a great way to move someone who's stuck into being unstuck. What is it that keeps you going? Another question you could ask is, why do you think that strategy didn't work? What would make it work? Or another helpful hint, scoring. Okay, on a scale of 1 to 5, how badly did it fail? Right? 10. What do you think would take it to us? 8. Right? Just little movements, you know, that like you said, like not all, what does success mean? What?
Are you doing motivational interviewing?
I can't hear you.
Are you doing motivational interviewing?
Yes. Yeah, it's just another bag, you know, something in the bag of tricks. You know, what can move them a little bit? Asking other people, you know, what other ideas they have. You said that. Let's see. That's all I have. I'm wondering if anybody else has any other ideas. You guys really were thorough, but any other experiences with the Doubting Thomases? Thanks. Let's move on to Silent Sally.
Silent Sally. So writing a prompt, a writing prompt for 2 minutes just to get people's brains going. A talking stick to pass around. Acknowledge presence. I don't know what this is. Thermometer to gauge room.
The thermometer, like how's everybody doing with this information? Yes, if I totally understand, middle of, oh yeah, this is kind of making sense, and down if, nope, I don't have any idea what you're talking about.
That's a great tip.
Thermometer.
Thermometer.
Sorry, that might be like it.
That's okay. And then use examples of kiddos to engage, checking in after the group. Things that are not helpful are being called on, put on the spot, large groups, and role playing. Allow opportunities for everyone to speak, and then allow time to respond. So one thing we were talking about is kind of like when you're more introverted, like you're processing the information and you might have an idea you might want to share, but then the conversation's already moved on, so making sure you slow it down. Small group conversations, some more opportunities for the small group convos. Option to start check-ins, so kind of saying, you know, if you want to be the first to check in when we're doing the check-ins at the beginning. Provide individual check-ins or an option for emailing or any other modes of communication. And then give them the floor as they become more comfortable, so when you do see them kind of coming out, just giving them that time to talk.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, so Silent Sally or Sam or whoever, another, like it's so important that everybody has a voice. And so this person may be quiet because they're shy, they may be indifferent, they may, you know, it just is too vulnerable. So small group activities are really good for engaging people like this because it's easier to talk in a group of 5 than it is a group of 25. Also, I am a huge fan of sticky notes. Because Silent Sally, we didn't get to Chatty Cathy yet, but Silent Sally and Chatty Cathy can, you know, Chatty Cathy can make it almost impossible for Silent Sally to speak, or Doubting Thomas, right? So sticky notes. What I find is as soon as those people who are rapid responders start responding, they're already influencing the thoughts of the people who are a little bit slower. So give people the question. Give them a couple of minutes to think about it. Write their answers on a sticky note so that their answer is recorded, their voice is heard. And then do a round robin or a popcorn share, right? And if Silent Sally still doesn't want, you know, like I had you come put your stickies up here. If Silent Sally still doesn't want to read it, I can read it for that person and their voice is still heard. What they are saying and what they are thinking is still heard. Let's see. Also, calling on gently, slowly, calling on Silent Sally. Okay, Rebecca, I'm wondering if you have a thought about that. An invitation. You wouldn't want to do it a bunch of times within a class, especially early on, because then Sally might not come back to class. But to start inviting, when you see that character is engaged, take that opportunity and give them an invitation to join. Thanks. Chatty Cathy.
This one's similar to the know-it-all, so I won't go a ton into what we talked about, but a couple of things that we said were developing group norms or group expectations, group rules, friendly reminders, asking for group permission to move us along like Amy did yesterday, and bringing together, prioritizing the group goals at the beginning of your sessions together, so really prioritizing what are our goals for today, do I have your permission to stick to those goals? Providing opportunities for them to talk or to share or be the expert, inviting early or after school or after class discussions for them, and similarly letting them know an alternate time when you can go more in depth into the information that they're hoping to talk a little more about. Being okay interrupting and redirecting the conversation, bringing the discussion back and being focused yourself, and having a parking lot for death later, also the same. You could also change your own personal volume and energy level to match that person and to bring that energy back to where you need it to be.
That's great self-regulation. We're also paralleling doing that with the kids that the participants are taking care of. Sticky note responses are really good for Chatty Cathy as well. And also saying when you ask a question, you just say, I'd like to hear from someone we haven't heard from yet. And then look around and, you know, Chatty Cathy may be like, oh, but I just anybody I haven't heard from yet. And then you can get to Chatty Cathy's comment, but give other people, it's really important that other people have a voice as well. Okay, Chatty Cathy's cousin, the Rambler.
Okay, should I be somehow wondering what subtle message you're trying to give me that I ended up on both the topics?
I don't know you well enough.
So, Rambler, so the big thing is that that person is coming to class ready to talk about anything, everything under the sun. I'm a stay-at-home mom, and this is my chance to have grown-up conversation, and I don't care what you want to talk about, I'm happy to go there. So the big thing is, knowing what the motivation behind that Rambler is, and inviting them maybe to come early or stay late so that the class itself can stay on schedule, so making sure that you set that up and that expectation ahead of time is really important. So I think that one common theme with all of them is just setting out what the expectations or ground rules are for the group in general and how class is going to move along. Recognizing opportunities to offer support or direction for that individual after class, because sometimes maybe that Rambler piece is going to be because they have concerns or negativeness or knowing everything or wondering how they're going to do that. So recognizing through their rambling what are some ways that we might be able to support them, validate and redirect. In this instance, to ask others in the room to reflect and that they could possibly help Silent Sally in that room and give that Silent Sally a voice. Facilitate reframing, so taking whatever it is that the Rambler is going on about and reframing that and finding a way of rewording how that applies to whatever the discussion is. And then sometimes it's okay to interrupt, and it does help. And active listening to be able to kind of take everything that they've had and run out and summarize it for everybody else to go, oh, that's what they were trying to say. And then written and verbal instructions and setting timers and time limits. There's loads more, but I won't bring them.
That's great. Great suggestions here too. And I think the key here is this person is confusing to other people. They can be frustrating, but try as the facilitators to stay cued into this person, because being able to summarize and bring them back on task, that is going to be your role. And you may have to say, put some tips on this here. You may have to say, like, I'm wondering what brought that up for you. What part of our discussion brought this up for you? Because most often there is a connection, but it's only clear to the Rambler. Other people are kind of like, what? But, if you ask them that question, they say, well, when you said something about pork, whatever, it reminded me of this. And you can help make the connection. But it could be a challenging person to have in class. Thank you. I also love that you all partnered the characters. You were like, this person will work well with this person, or, you know, this, if we do this with this person, it gives this character some more space. So that's really great thinking that you had there. I'm wondering, outstanding questions before we take a break? You did a great job thinking about these characters. So one helpful hint that I just didn't do, I asked you a question. Be comfortable with silence time. I asked you a question and immediately said, great job, you know. Be okay, like 8-second rule, right? Let the question hang. I didn't in this case because I feel like you talked in small groups, you switched to another small group, then we did a group discussion. So like we're done with the discussion, but in general, when you ask a question, leave a little hang time. So let's take a break until about 10 after or so.